Deal with the problem by becoming rich.
Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
I say when we
You can
sell.
wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM. Fuck's sake. Take two. Monday, 28th of October. I just recorded a 15-minute daily levels. Screen share did not activate. So you can hear me talking for 15 minutes with no fucking visual. Excellent. Fantastic. What better way to start the week? Let's go. So, right. Let me try and remember exactly what I was talking about. Starting with Bitcoin. We'll zoom it out. Weekly closes. Good weekly close there on BTC. Ignore this. I mean, it kind of glitches on that chart. There we go. After the big impulse candle 2 weeks ago, we followed up with a nice consolidation candle, a bit of a down wick, and closing near the highs. This week opening up with an early week dip, and I talked about this yesterday, that you would expect to see the weekly low get put in on Monday, if it's going to be a green week, most likely. We saw that. We dipped off the open here, down, consolidated at the bands, moving higher. So from here, I think BTC is going to take the highs, and if it's going to be a positive week overall, you probably don't see it go much lower than what's already been set. So we definitely can drop back down into that area. All right, so we can drop into, if you go on a lower time frame, we can drop back down into this area here, which is a one that I marked. I was mentioning in day trader chat. I was getting into a day trade, or not really a day trade, but potentially a swing trade before the end of the session, around here. We lost that level briefly, so I closed it. It consolidated and held. It turned that into resistance. We've broken back above it, so that's good. A couple of ways to watch this. I'll break it down more on trade of the day for the immediate path. But if BTC is going to continue higher, I would suspect that it doesn't go any lower than that blue line this week, and we probably do come back and fill in some of this area here, but at a later date, because we're getting now to the end of the month and into the start of the following month, which are the historically typically good times for BTC. So I'd be watching for these highs to get taken and for us to touch 70 and see how does price react around there. If price comes up to that level and consolidates rather than breaking further, you probably see it remain high until the election, because again, we've good end of month and we have the start of the next month, which typically have some positive flows. And then around that election point, you might see a spike or a dump around that point, and then a drop back into a higher low. This higher low doesn't have to come from here, but I do suspect that if this consolidation produces new highs, it will leave behind an area below these previous daily lows from last week. It will leave behind an area where price can come back and retest and sweep later on. I think that will happen in November and we begin the run proper in December, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, let's zoom out a bit and focus on this high time frame chart and look at what we're looking for moving forward. So at each stage of a market cycle, you have different participants, and you get the smartest money that buys the bottom, right? These are like the OGs and the crypto natives and the whales and the whatever else. There's a lot of talk now about BlackRock are buying and the ETFs are buying and stuff like that. And I do agree. I don't think that this is where the market tops, but I also don't think that the people accumulating here are going to be as risk-taking as the ones who would buy here, naturally, right? You're buying in a deep bear market and an early bull. You clearly have a higher risk tolerance. You're probably more of a crypto native and you're willing to take on that extra risk for a greater reward, both in time and in price. At this point, I would ask myself, where will people want to sell from here? There's a lot of talk about Bitcoin, all-time high targets. I think if Bitcoin doubles from here, it's a really, really good return. And I would say that's about 120. Because if you look across this entire consolidation, The majority of the position building's probably done anywhere between 60 and 65. And if we go to 120, and I don't think it goes there in just one push, I think there'll be false tops along the way, but I think 120 would be a like upper limit of what I'd expect to see in the next several months. And I also think it won't get there right away. I would expect that something like a 90k before 100k will produce another lengthy consolidation before another push. So how that might look, if I go to a fresh chart, how that might look would be, it goes, of course that's not a fresh chart, to 90, then it consolidates throughout the summer, and then it kicks on, something like that, right? So you're probably going to see it more like this. A push, I think the push will be shorter than people want it to be, right? Because having gotten through the summer period, I think a lot of people are expecting up only and easy conditions all the way until whatever. A lot of people seem to think the end of Q1, March or April or whatever. I think it'll be pulled forward. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin have a strong December and a strong January and already be topping out by the time we get to February, followed by 6 or 8 months of chop, followed by a final push at the end of the year. This is a very rough expectation. It's not really meant to be accurate in terms of price either, but I do think price action, right? Forget what price it goes to. I do think that's most likely that once we have a push out here, you're going to have big players who are happy to take a 50% profit. That's kind of my overall view. Someone who's accumulated 60, I think they're going to be happy to take a 50% gain on, a large position in a relatively short space of time. And it's not the same people as the ones who are buying here. The ones who are buying here have had to sit through more time and are probably more willing to sit for longer before they exit. But I think they'll be beginning to exit as well, right? If you'd been patiently accumulating in the 20s and in the 30s, this is where I bought my cycle bags predominantly for Bitcoin, anywhere between 17 and 31, and then bought a little bit more in the 40s. If you're thinking about where to actually take profit on those bags, I don't think here is a good place. I think you can and probably should hold for longer. But I also don't think that having 150, 200, 250k targets for those bags is necessarily good either. It would be great if we got it. I'm just not sure that the current participants would be willing to hold Bitcoin for that long and continue buying it as well in the FOMO phase. Because as it gets bigger, you have more short-term players with bigger capital. So your Wall Street types and ETFs, institutions, and the people playing the shorter-term swings, as well as the kind of diamond hands holders who are then realizing, if it goes above 100, some people are in 6, 7, 8x, maybe even 10x profit if it gets to 150. I don't think it will get there. I don't think we'll do a 10x off the lows by the end of this run here. And it aligns as well with my general expectation for BTC that I don't think we see it go like all the way back down. And I think we see, any bear markets being sort of just lengthy reaccumulations before Bitcoin just continues higher and higher and higher and higher for the rest of the decade. And so how does that look then? October is playing out pretty much as I expected on monthly preview. November, I think, plays the same, where it will have an attempt at all-time high, probably not closing above it. And then December and January are probably going to be the best months. And I think that when we break out December, January, most people will think, okay, good, that means we've got February and March, and I think that's actually where it starts to lag. Doesn't give the extra couple months that people might be expecting. Goes into a more of a sideways chop. That's probably when altcoins do best. January, February, maybe even into March might be when altcoins are their best runs, but I think Bitcoin will probably be going into a sideways period at that point. That aligns pretty much with how you would view the total 3 chart alongside BTC as well. If you're looking at it over here, like, where's total 3? If we go total 3 on a monthly, we're looking at this, right? Total 3 would be lagging significantly, and it is. And so if Bitcoin gets to all-time high by that point, right, you're talking about total 3 making its way to those highs. And then while Bitcoin is selling off or consolidating, you see another push on altcoins before they eventually have a deeper pullback. So you get a second push on alts after BTC has topped and went into its consolidation. And I think this is when people mistake the top, would be my guess. People will mistake this for the cycle top when it's actually a Bitcoin consolidation. And that will be the cycle top for many alts. It might even be a cycle top for total 3 as a whole. These periods, if this happens, some alts will do really well here. They'll do really well here. Individual alts will have some excellent setups. But when you look back at the end of the cycle, I think we'd say that alts have really underperformed relative to BTC. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Now, Sol, I mark it out here. 1 hour. No. Which Sol chart was I on? I had a Sol chart marked up from before. It's not this one. Right, found it. Now, here's my expectation of Solana. So, couple areas. If you view Solana through a perspective of this reaccumulation, right? It has spent very little time in this area. So when you're coming through a consolidation like we've seen, price rallies up and then it forms a bottom and you want to see it get to the top corner of that box or top corner of that consolidation and show that it can spend some time there. There's 2 ways it can do it. Black path would be if it doesn't hang around in the consolidation, it moves up and shows strength through it. I would be looking to buy into the green area for Sol, right? If we get a move up towards this level and we touch those highs at 194 and we drop back and we retest this low that we set over the weekend, I would look to get in, swing long, start buying sol there, and then adding there. The blue path would be ideal, and it'd be kind of exactly what you'd expect to see, where it spends 6 or 8 months digesting the price change. So it went above 200. A lot of people are trapped here, right? Lots of trap positions there. People buying above 200 got trapped, and some of them cut and exited on the first bounce. That's why it didn't reach 200. And the second time, same again. So Solana has a lot of supply to get through at that 200 level. Very clearly there's support at 120 that is held and held and held and held. It's spent a lot of time between 120 and 160. That is where the bulk of the accumulation has begun. If it falls back below 160, then you're looking at many more weeks or months of chop. So if it loses that level, Solana is going to be stuck down there. So what you want to see is that it stays above it. And if we fast forward into a month from now, end of November going towards December, if Solana is somewhere around this blue path and it has spent time in this area which it was unable to spend time in before, that to me is a good sign that what was previously supply is flipping into demand. So there's the two ways I would view Sol for the next couple of months and how to get in on trades. I think it will have a really strong move up because people will mistake this move for the move, right? This is going to be the breakout, which is why I think it can push towards 200. But even in the most bullish path, I think it should reject 200 the first time and then struggle to get above 200. And once it does, that's when you start getting in. I would not buy the first touch of 200 on Sol because there's going to be some lasting supply that has been waiting to get out at 200 that probably will overwhelm any short-term demand. And then buying above that or buying below that if it flips this 160 from a resistance to a support. As for ETH, so I actually think there's a really good trade on ETH with the exact same principle. So many people bet heavily on ETH at 3K, right? ETH held 3K in April, in May, in July. It then lost that level. And so you can see this red zone has been front ran, right? Price has not made it back to those lows because people have taken the chance to get out on any bounce. Get out, get out, get out, get out. So ETH has loads of supply itself to grind through. And I think that it needs to make its way through that before it can have a run towards, for me, a target on ETH would be the ETF launch price. I don't know if it'll make a new 2024 high. I don't know if it'll make a new all-time high or when it'll do it. But I think the best trade on ETH is probably through this zone here at some point. And I would guess that that is also going to come around that December period. So that's what I'm looking at for ETH. I think there's a really good swing trade on ETH. Hopefully the sentiment gets even worse and more toxic and blah, blah, blah. Because if you're talking about, let's say Bitcoin has hit all-time high by this point and Solana has hit 220 or 230, and people are like, oh my God, ETH is just fucking dog shit. Look how far away it is, so bad, it's so this or that. Catch-up trade, breaking above. I think once it gets above there, a lot of shorts will have to close. It will finally have grinded through all that resistance, right? So basically anyone who sold, bought here and sold here will be out, and it will probably run pretty quickly through that range. I see a pretty big volume gap here. I don't see much in the way of resistance once it gets back above 2800 towards 3K and then runs on to 34. ETF launch price around that level would be an area I'd be looking at. So there's my view for the majors. I still think December is the time. I then think we have a couple of very big months, and just when people start to get themselves really accustomed to up only, we probably go into a lengthy chop at the beginning of next year. That is it. Oh yeah, did I compare Bitcoin and Total 3? I did, yeah. GM. Last thing, times for my streams. So every day I aim to stream at 4 p.m. UTC, the main stream, whether it's altcoin requests or Ask Michael or Casual Fridays. That's moving to 5 p.m. UTC because for the majority of you, that's going to be the same time in your own time zone, right? Because of the clocks changing at the weekend. The main stream will now be at 5 p.m. UTC, unless I say otherwise, but most days it'll be at 5 p.m. UTC. The second stream, which today is Blue Belt, Mentorship Monday, that will be at 7. So instead of 4 and 6, it's 5 and 7 in UTC time zone. But that means it's the exact same for you, right? If you're in Europe and it was usually at 5 p.m., it's still going to be at 5 p.m. If you're somewhere else and it was at 7, it's still going to be at 7. So for anyone who does have daylight savings, which is the majority, as I polled you guys the other day, here, right, 80% of people, for 80% of you, the streams are going to be at the same time in your time zone, which is most important, because same for me. My life is, all built around, my routine and schedule is built around those times, so I'm going to change them. That is it. GM. See you later. 5 p.m. UTC. GM.